And I finally found it though. Yeah, I'm muting it.
ऐसे लहरा के तू रूबरू आ गई, ऐसे लहरा के तू रूबरू आ गई, धड़कने बेतहाशा तड़पने लगी, धड़कने बेतहाशा तड़पने लगी, तीर ऐसा लगा दर्द ऐसा जगा, तीर ऐसा लगा दर्द ऐसा जगा, चोट दिल पे वो खाई मजा आ गया, मेरे रश के कमर, मेरे रश के कमर, तूने पहली नजर, जब नजर से मिलाई मजा आ गया, जोश ही जोश में मेरी आगोश में, आके तू जो समाई मजा आ गया, रेत ही रेत थी मेरे दिल में भरी, रेत ही रेत थी मेरे दिल में भरी, प्यास ही प्यास थी जिंदगी ये मेरी, प्यास ही प्यास थी जिंदगी ये मेरी, आज सहराओं में इश्क के गाँव में, आज सहराओं में इश्क के गाँव में, बारिशें घिर के आई मजा आ गया, मेरे रश के कमर, मेरे रश के कमर, तूने पहली नजर, जब नजर से मिलाई मजा आ गया, रांझा हो गए हम फना हो गए, ऐसे तू मुस्कुराई मजा आ गया, मेरे रश के कमर, तूने पहली नजर, जब नजर से मिलाई मजा आ गया,
That was the sound check.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Hello. And we have Arjun Sinha back here, or as I like to call him, Truth Seeker Jeff. And he is back, and we are going to talk about the most fantastic country in the world besides Mexico, Pakistan. Truth Seeker Jeff, how you doing? Any news since last time we spoke to you, I believe concerning the violence in Bengal?
Well, no, I'm doing good, and violence in Bengal has subsided. I mean, it's under control for now. So, but we had a flyover that crashed, like a section of a flyover came down. So that's then I don't know how many people died, or 3 4 people died. So yeah, that's something.
So I want to welcome all the new viewers. If you don't know who this is, he is a guest from my other channel, Bald Like a Leopard. His name is Arjun Sinha. He's from, of course, India, Kolkata, to be more exact. And the song that was playing was, I believe, called, one second, Merrick Rashka Kamar. and it is from Pakistan, but I actually don't know anything about it besides that. Is it a popular song also in India as well, or do you guys just listen to your own music?
Actually, I have never heard of this song, though. But in Pakistan, mostly Indian songs are more famous in Pakistan than their own, which is like bizarre. And but the reverse is not true. Pakistani songs are not famous in India, so well, that's the thing. Yeah.
Oh, so we're throwing a little shade the other way there, aren't you?
Well, we can't argue with facts. 70% of the entertainment industry is basically Indian films and television serials,
do
which
do they
is
do they have like a
I'm
big
not joking about that.
do they have like a big film industry over there in Pakistan though, or is it
They
mostly the
do have a they do have a film industry which is decent, but for whatever bizarre reason, eh, they watch Indian movies and not their own. I don't know why. Can't explain that.
All right, all joking and trolling aside, we are talking about a real topic today. If you're not new to the channel, we do try to cover issues that aren't just in the news. In the news, you basically talk about Donald Trump's genitals or Anthony Weiner's genitals or, people sending nude pics to each other. We're going to talk about the United States cutting a massive proportion of its foreign aid to Pakistan earlier this year. It's kind of a topic that went under the radar for most Americans since they can barely know where Delaware is. I mean, so you don't even, they don't even think about them being able to point out where Pakistan is. So I have on the screen that's from the Hindu Times, which is actually a very centrist to left leaning, or just the Hindu. It's a centrist to left leaning newspaper over in India, and it says this is dealing with the India and Pakistan relationship. And it comes from 2011, and it kind of, the screen doesn't freeze on me. It kind of delves into Pakistan's view of how that relationship goes. And you reading it, Arjun, who, let's be frank, you're not really a fan of Pakistan. How does it feel to like read the Pakistani viewpoint towards the relationship between Pakistan and the United States?
See, see. I won't really say that I'm not a fan of Pakistan. It's not that I hate their guts or anything. It's more of an indifference that I have towards Pakistan because Pakistan is not really relevant to the future of India. I'm speaking as a citizen of India, right? And why should I really waste my time thinking about a country which has no bearing on the future of my country? But on the other hand, the only bearing it does have is the terror that comes out of that country, right? And as far as the other aspects of I have consistently held the belief that the Pakistani people are being taken for a ride, right? The civilian government was looting them. The army, the Pakistani army, which literally controls their country, is looting them and as well as deceiving them. So if the government and the people and the powers that be are continuously deceiving you for decades on end, then then you get a country which is like then you get a country like Pakistan, which has no sense of national identity, which is basically an acronym. It's basically an acronym, and there is no historical
Sorry.
backing toward whatever their identity they feel or whatever they feel is their identity. So they hold on to whatever they can get. It's like that. That's my view on Pakistan. It's not that I hate them. It's I see them as a sort of a what would happen if it's like a dystopian. It's like a dystopian. It's like a menagerie. It's like a glass menagerie of a dystopian, whatever a dystopian system would be like.
So, sorry, would you say like a lot of and sorry for the viewers, I'm kind of pulling up the chat right now, so I just wanted to be able to see the chat while we're looking at the content. But Arjun, would you say personally that the way that India views Pakistan right now is that they kind of Pakistan is more focused on being the anti-India than they are on cleaning their own house? Would that be an
Mhm.
accurate description?
Yeah.
So of course we did discuss kind of in a more focused way last I think 4 months ago the partition of India. And for those of you that are not aware, I mean, we'll pull up a map. But the partition of India is one of the most ignored catastrophic events in the history of the world, I guess. And let me see here. Let me just pull up a map. So your region of India, Bengal, was indeed partitioned into two parts: East Pakistan and West Bengal, which remains to this day a part of India. Now that's on the eastern front, and then I don't know why they can't just give me a damn map, but on the western side, of course, there were a number of provinces or even kingdoms of the British Raj, such as Hyderabad, which is, I guess, more to the south, and what's it called? Jammu and Kashmir, the northernmost province of the British Raj in India.
Mhm.
And those were really like really flashpoints where there was active combat. Some of these were split down the middle. Punjab was originally a province that was multi faith, you could say, between Muslims and Sikhs, and nowadays there are no Sikhs in West Punjab, which is part of Pakistan, but they're like all of them have to live in India, which ironically they're not necessarily happy about because of the secular nature of the Indian state. So going back, so we are going to get into some more specific issues of today, but how do you feel should have been conducted the partition of the British Raj after World War II? Remember that a lot of these regions simply don't get along anyway. So would you have a different way of doing it?
Okay, the partition is it's a simple issue and a complex issue at the same time, right? The simple issue is why it happened, because Jinnah pushed for the partition between Hindus and Muslims. The intention behind why the British wanted the British Empire wanted a partition at that time is more obfuscated. It's a very complex reason, but in a nutshell, what happened was when at that time when communism was spreading, right? They needed a buffer state. The British needed a buffer state between India and the spread of communism, because communism was heading towards Central Asia at that point of time. So the British required a buffer state between India and the communist expansion. That is one possible. That is what historians theorize was one major possibility why the partition happened. The other reason why partition happened was, which is also a major factor, was the deep mistrust between the Hindus and Muslims. Because at that time, at the time of independence, what happened was that was the end of a 1,000-year period, means an entire millennia of slavery from which India was liberated, right? About 950 years to about 900 years under Muslims, and about 200-300 years under the British. So it was like a 1,000 to 1,100-year period between which was abject slavery, oppression, and like slavery in the sense that they were taking us all over the world and selling us there, right? The Arab traders, the Muslims, the Muslim invaders, and stuff like that. Then followed by the British, who also they called it bonded labor, but that was also slavery. They took us against the will.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, there's the nation of Guyana over here near near Brazil and Venezuela, which a massive proportion of their population are British imported, the descendants of British imported Indian laborers. So yeah, that's true.
Even Suriname would be another country. Then in the West Indies, in Maldives, in Mauritius, all these countries, they had. Oh, okay, so that's besides the point. But so what happened was, over a period of time, later the British, they were leaving at that point of time because they couldn't hold on to the Indian Navy, the Indian army, what the Indian soldiers who were part of the British Army and the British Navy at that point. They were all mutinying, and they couldn't hold on to power in India because it was dangerous for them to to stick around. So what happened was the Muslim League and Jinnah and all the Muslim groups, they got together and they started a movement to petition for Pakistan, right? When certain Muslim groups, certain more secular, more reasonable Muslim groups oppose this, saying that Hindus and Muslims cannot live apart. It's to create a state only on the basis of religion is foolish. Jinnah changed the thing, and he started appealing to the fear, the fear of Muslims and the insecurities of Muslims, saying that Hindus will not let you survive in this country after the British leave. The British were actually keeping the Hindus from like killing you. So on that basis, Jinnah somehow got a political movement on his side, and then he managed to convince the British to partition the country. So that is the genesis of the partition in a nutshell. I'm like leaving out a lot here. There is also something called there was something called the Khilafat movement at that time, which is that old style, which is the forerunner of today's ISIS. It's the Caliphate movement in the old times. It's the original model of the Caliphate, which was also part of this, and there is a whole bunch of things behind this. So yeah, so that is the genesis of the partition in a nutshell. Yeah.
So we have a viewer right now commenting, Ryu Shiska, by the way, who is I don't know where he's joining us from, but he brought up the issue of the recent U.S. aid cuts to Pakistan and how China is moving in to fill that gap. I think that's a fair point. However, Pakistan's had a kind of a close relationship with China for several decades now. China is kind of a country that, they're just willing to sell to anybody, just so that they can throw their weight around. And I guess, it's not as if America has the best record on that either, because we've been selling shit to Pakistan for years and kind of sometimes giving them stuff. So in India, of course, they like we were just saying, there was the partition. West Pakistan, or I guess the whole nation of Pakistan, which you can see on the map, was originally both the current country where my cursor is hovering and East Pakistan over here, which is now the nation of Bangladesh, became kind of a British-supported, Western-oriented country. India gradually drifted into socialism, but not to the degree that they were a Soviet satellite. But they did have kind of a cozy relationship with Moscow for several decades. They didn't want to be completely dominated by any specific country. How was America viewed by the Indian public in those years? Because, of course, there were several hot wars with Pakistan. I believe in 65 and in 70, 71, and various small flare-ups in between. So what was like the perception of the United States over there in your country?
See, I'll tell you a story about Elihu Yale, who founded the Yale University, right? He came to India as a guy with probably $10 in his pocket, right? I'm being generous, and he left with, I guess, I don't know, tens of millions of dollars, which he used to found the Yale University. Now, Americans who were jointly, in small number, there were a small number of Americans who were jointly working with the British to actively loot the country. That happened. But that's a minor point. The drift with US happened after independence, because the first prime minister of our country was an atheist and a socialist.
Jawaharlal Nehru.
And he was. Are you
talking about Jawaharlal Nehru?
Yeah, Nehru. Yeah, he was a socialist and an atheist, and he was the fact that he was close to Russia. He became close to China first, and then Russia, because they were obviously communist countries. But what ended up happening to the point where initially, when the UN Security Council was formed, a seat was offered to India. Nehru, for whatever bizarre reason, for bizarre logic, he said China should get that seat, and the UN Security Council gave the seat to China. So, so but Nehru maintained a public image of non-aligned, and subsequent prime ministers as well maintained an image of that we are non-aligned to either the Soviet bloc or the US bloc. We are not aligned to anybody. Which which for whatever intention he came up with that plan, but it has paid dividends over the time that we are now friends with whatever with countries that were members of both blocs. So that has paid dividends for us over a period of time. But that aside, Nehru drifted away from the US because US started supporting Pakistan, right? And US started supporting Pakistan because of two reasons. A, India declared itself non-aligned when US was interested in having India. And two, because Nehru was a socialist and subsequently Indira Gandhi was also a socialist, Congress was a socialist party, it's a center-left party. The US at that time they had that paranoia going that communism is spreading, communism is coming for you. So they viewed India as a Soviet satellite, even though India had publicly declared that they weren't. Because one example I can give you is Indira Gandhi, the daughter of Jawaharlal Nehru. She had good relations with both Moscow and US, right? She had visited the White House, she had visited the Kremlin, and she had good relations with both. But she openly said, "I'm non-aligned." She to the Soviets, she used to say that we are closer to the Soviets. And at the same time, what she was doing was she was letting the U.S. Air Force use Indian military Air Force bases to launch spy missions into Soviet territory and China. So the India under the Nehrus, they were playing sort of a double game. Let's just say that,
Mm-hmm.
which was not necessarily the attitude of the Indian people. This was, I'm talking about the political establishment only, because at that time the political establishment was pretty opaque. They were not an open you could not, there was a lack of transparency, let's just say that. Now America saw the rising socialism, wave of socialism in India, and they said, okay, who do we have as an ally in that region? If India is not willing to join the US bloc, then who do we have as an ally in that region? So the Pakistanis raised their hand and said, yes, sir, three bags full, sir. So that is the genesis of the US and Pakistan relationship. And it is, let's get deeper into that then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So Pakistan, I think it's a similar attitude that America had to Pakistan as we had to Indonesia, in that we I guess we assumed that putting into power kind of these conservative Muslim leaders would be a good bulwark against communism, and as it very, very much was in both of those countries, and especially it paid off for America in the late 70s and the 80s, when the Soviet Union did indeed invade. They invaded Afghanistan.
Afghanistan.
They also had, of course, bordering India and Pakistan is the People's Republic of China. I do believe that China's never really needed, and historically, to expand into India itself or into Pakistan. It's kind of a totally different dynamic. But we will be discussing, of course, because somebody already brought it up, and there's realistically there's an angle today. China has really become a rival, or vice versa. I think India has become an industrial rival of China, and Pakistan also. They both have this issue where they don't have a very strict labor or safety laws or environmental controls in any of those countries, India, Pakistan, or China. Why is it you think that Pakistan, and we'll revisit this, why are they more willing to deal directly with China than India is? Or is it really like anybody will deal with anybody there on a commercial and military basis?
See, considering economic ties with China, India's economic ties with China are far superior than it is with Pakistan. Comparatively, the China-Pakistan economic relationship is very weak, and it is heavily sort of weighing to one side, which is China. It is weighing in favor of China. That there is a trade imbalance in that, if you were to put it that way. Because China is an investor, it is basically just pumping in money into Pakistan in exchange for whatever it can buy up, right? It's buying up land, it's building infrastructure over there. It is trying to build that one belt, one road thing that they have been talking about for so long. But India has successfully blocked that because of territorial disputes. So China ended up building that the Gwadar port and the road to Gwadar port, but that infrastructure is lying vacant because the Pakistanis don't know how to put it to use, right? They haven't been able to, because of the rampant corruption in their rank and file, they have not been able to operationalize that port. So so as far as being willing to deal with China is, it is the rift with China did not occur from India's side. I mean, you may call me a biased commentator in this, but the fact of the matter is there are two aspects to this. China always saw India as a rival. China has a historical grievance against India because of their communists. Communists have a historical grievance against India, saying that there was this Chinese author, Nobel Prize winning author, I'm forgetting his name, who had once made this comment that India dominated China for more than 20 centuries without ever sending across even a single soldier. We culture, basically, they felt culturally dominated. That is their historical beef with India. Now, when the communists took over, they took this to a whole new level, and then they started an active anti-India policy from their side. But at the same time, they wanted to trade with us. They wanted to trade with the rest of the world. So, as far as economic ties are concerned today, they are very strong. In fact, like Chinese products are available all over the place, and in fact, most of the major mobile manufacturers who are selling in India today are Chinese. So there are there are deep trade ties with China, but at the same time, there are land disputes, there are espionage issues, there are many other issues. Their support of terrorism in Pakistan, like for example, their support of Maulana Masood Azhar, and blocking India from designating him as a terrorist. They're doing all that sort of thing in support of Pakistan because they have economic interests in Pakistan. So
Yeah, I
the
think
the
it's
problem
kind of
with
like
China is, yeah.
it's kind of China. They're like the ultimate, like, I mean, it's kind of like the world's frat boy, because everything that fucks with them. They have their own Islamic insurgency over there in Xinjiang, that they
Yeah.
just don't give a fuck, and they'll basically throw people in prison for like forever and force them to eat pork, and everybody asks questions. It's like, oh, fuck you, do you want your Nikes or not? But with India, I guess they're like, yeah, we'll pay, we'll give you like all sorts of help in order to get these people to basically screw with your country. It's like, I don't know. I think they have like a good way of getting away with things. It's like a talent with that country.
No, it's more like people are willing to turn the other way for trade reasons. It's more like that, right? See, if you really like assess China and the and its relationship with the world, which country really wants to deal with China because they feel it's a positive thing to do? They really deal with China because they have to for trade reasons. It's like the relative you don't want to really associate with, but you're stuck with
Hmm.
because they're family. It's more like that. So China's position in the world is it is still isolated in that sense. Even though everybody is dealing with them, the fact is they are still isolated because nobody likes them. China shares its borders with 14 different countries, and it has a border dispute with every single one of them plus four more countries whom it doesn't even share the border with. And then there's a South China Sea dispute. China feels that it has to throw its weight around. China has this. China, okay, because they're communists, they hate the capitalists,
Hmm.
and the U.S. is the be all and end all. Means that is their idea of what capitalists are like. They have this certain idea about the U.S. and they feel that all capitalists are like whatever their idea of the U.S. is. So because they obsess over the U.S., just like Pakistan obsesses about India, they are becoming more and more capitalistic. Like whatever you obsess about, there's this old proverb that says, whatever you obsess about, you become that, right? So China is becoming more and more trying to become more and more like the US, and it says, okay, the US threw its weight about in the world. They are a superpower. We should also behave like that. They bully everybody. We should also bully everybody. That's their basic idea. So that is that is a absolutely a childish view of the world, which correlates very little to reality, and it is bringing whatever consequences it is to them, and they are facing those consequences today. Yeah.
So we're going to look back to the issue with Pakistan over the years. Now, this is not
Uh-huh.
a complete timeline. I believe that it ends in 2009, but it talks a little about the foreign aid to the U.S. and Pakistan. Now, of course, I'm not going to say we should have never given them any aid because, of course, they were a Cold War ally, and that was kind of a different dynamic going on there. But apparently, it says in 1965, the U.S. suspended military aid to Pakistan following its conflict with India. So, of course, probably in the years between 1947 and 1965, they established military aid to Pakistan. And then for 15 years, they did. So they didn't keep it going. And then in '79, after the CIA's confirmation of Pakistan's nuclear enrichment program, President Jimmy Carter suspended all aid, barring well, they just wrote the sentence wrong, but they just gave them food aid. Now,
Uh-huh.
I don't. I mean, I know everybody's going to say, you're being an idiot here, Razor Ray, but technically there's nothing wrong with Pakistan seeking nuclear weapons because a lot of countries were at the time: South Africa, Israel, Iraq. It's kind of like the pot calling the kettle black. But Jimmy Carter was I guess he did fear what would be the result of it. So of course he did lose the election the next year, so it doesn't really matter. In the early 1980s, the military aid was once again increased following the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. What was so? Let's pause here for a second. What was India's role in that conflict, the Soviet war in Afghanistan? Were they at all sympathetic to one side or another?
India was not involved in the Soviet-Afghan war one way or the other. It had no interest in that war. We were not involved in it. What we were involved was in the rebuilding of Afghanistan starting after that war. Right? India has been on and off helping rebuild Afghanistan war after war after war. Like there was the civil war, then there was the tribal war. We have always helped them rebuild. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Now coming to the aid, the military aid of Pakistan, right, which you are talking about. Now the nature of why US gives Pakistan that aid has changed over the decades. Initially, it was for, yeah, they were the Cold War ally. Then then once they got nuclear weapons, the nature of why the aid was given changed. There is a fear in the US establishment, as is there in India and world over, that if if we stop our aid, giving aid to Pakistan, the government will collapse, because right now that the US has stopped giving aid to Pakistan, Pakistan's foreign exchange reserves have dropped to below $10 billion for the first time in their history.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They don't have enough money to buy food for the next 2 months. They don't have money to buy anything beyond beyond a month and a half to 2 months. So that is their condition economically, right? And if if the aid stops, the government and the country will collapse. If the country collapses, what happens? Different provinces separate, tribal factions separate, and who does the nuclear weapon? Who do the nuclear weapons go to? That is the reason why today US for what for for that very reason US is unable to stop the aid that it gives to Pakistan 100%. If it stops the aid, Pakistan collapses. End of story. Then the nuclear weapons get divided amongst the Haqqani network, the Jamaat ud-Dawa, Lashkar-e-Toiba, Hizbul Mujahideen, Al Qaeda, ISIS, you name it. You name it. It might even reach Boko Haram for all you know.
Yeah,
Right? Even they might get nukes.
the thing people don't understand about Pakistan is that it's not. I mean, it's kind of, so, no offense to anybody from there, but it is kind of a fake country. That it's like, I mean, come on. The only thing that ties them together is a general affiliation with Islam, and they can't even agree on that because they have all these different sects of Islam that just keep slaughtering each other like all the time. You have Shia Muslims in Pakistan that I think are maybe 10 or 11% of the population. They just get bombed all the time by other Pakistanis. I think there's the Deobandi branch, which is a little more of an extreme sect somewhere in like northwest India, Pakistan. And
No, it's from India. It's from India.
oh, it is from you're right. It is from India originally, but it is strong in Pakistan.
Yeah.
And then the issue is you don't really have a commonality of language necessarily because part of the country speaks Punjabi, another part of the country speaks Sindhi, and you have the Pashtuns. Then they don't really. I mean, of course, the main language is Urdu, which is the
An Indian
Pakistan.
language.
Yeah, it's the same as Hindi, just with a different alphabet, with
Yeah.
the Arabic alphabet. So
Uh-huh.
you basically just shove people together, expect them to get along, like the British
Yeah.
always did back when they sort of let countries be independent, and then you expect. So yeah, it is a fragile country. It gets more and more fragile as they just get more embroiled in their kind of religious their boondoggles over there. So I think you make a good point, like logically, why America continues to have ties to them. So we'll keep going in terms of the timeline. So they did. There was an amendment that passed Congress that cut most of the aid through the 90s. And there were all these hiccups along the way. Then following 9/11, ironically, we started giving them more money. And then they did a debt relief of $1 billion in 2004. In 2009, so it's basically like the United States behaves towards Pakistan the same way that an NFL owner behaves towards his coke addicted players. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I'll keep giving you money as long as I can keep you snowed up until next game. And that's basically the way I look at it. And unfortunately, I think that there probably are like a lot of, because I know some people from there. I think I know a lot more people from India than I do from Pakistan. But there is a fairly large middle class and, of course, upper class in Pakistan. But they're of course shackled to this bullshit relationship. Their military just has a tremendous stranglehold on the politics there, and their intelligence agencies, the Inter Services Intelligence Agency, which I think is the military branch of their intelligence system. So they basically they fork over cash literally all the time to these terrorist groups. This was known from the beginning of the war on terror. Nothing ever changes. They just we just keep giving them money, and they just keep giving it to other people that don't necessarily want us to exist. So, what would you say is the best idea to change this situation for the benefit of as many people in the region as possible?
See, there is a, as I said, there is a deep concern regarding the nuclear arsenal, right? And they have now started cranking out tactical nukes, which have a range of 50 kilometers, which which means they are willing to bomb their own people. That is the level of desperation they have gotten as far as their rivalry with or their beef with India is concerned. Like if India attacks, we will nuke our own people also. Like we will nuke our own armies or armed forces. Just because why India has crossed the border. What like that's a lunatic's mindset, but okay, it's something. Is their ideology good for them? Now, as far as giving them money, see, the US also passed a law saying that if the army ever takes over again, because they were prone to military coups, if the army ever took over again, they would say we will stop all aid to Pakistan. No, forget food aid, forget military aid, forget all any other aid. We will stop all aid to Pakistan. So what Pakistan did was they allowed sort of a caretaker civilian government to exist, while they said Pakistan will decide its India policy, the Pakistan army will decide the India policy, the foreign policy, and the defense policy. The three main uh, portfolios in their government, the Pakistan army will decide.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the inter-services intelligence is concerned, being which is controlled by the army, obviously their thing is more complex, right? Pakistan right now does not have any control worth the name over any of the non-state actors it uses. It doesn't have any degree because the non-state actors whom we call terrorists are basically like different fringe groups who sort of are on have their own agendas. So what some are directed towards India, some work against Afghanistan, some work against the Central Asian, some work against China. So what the ISI, the Inter Services Intelligence, does is whenever it has some agenda to fulfill, it'll go to the if it has to say bomb India, it'll go to terrorists who are working against India. It'll go give them some money and request them please go and attack India, or it will say please go and attack the Xinjiang province, or please go and attack Afghanistan. It'll basically it doles out money. It has no degree of control. It's like when you if you have a pet snake, it is going to bite you at some point, right? So that is what is happening. It has the Pakistani establishment has fostered a pit of snakes, and now right now it is biting them because more terror attacks are happening inside Pakistan domestically than they are happening in India or any other place, even Afghanistan for that matter. So the right now Pakistan is a mess as far as the establishment is concerned, and like if the aid stops, like they'll starve to death. Like they don't even have grass because it's mostly a desert region.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So we're dealing kind of with a country that and this kind of, I mean, people talk about America being this way with the deep state, but in Pakistan it's basically acknowledged by everybody to be, it's not even an open secret. That's just the way it is. You know, their own former prime minister, Ms. Benazir Bhutto, was murdered by terrorists at the behest probably of one of the other political factions. And
Mhm.
I think that, I mean, eventually people do get tired. They did elect this year a new prime minister who was a former cricket athlete and international star, Imran Khan. And maybe later we can get into what you think are the big changes or not changes that might come about from that. Um, because I mean, people were calling him the Donald Trump of India. Now, I haven't seen any evidence of him insulting Rosie O'Donnell or the Pakistani Rosie O'Donnell, but it could change. Um, so let's look at some of the materials that we were going back and forth on. I think.
Before
Oh,
that, may I interject on one thing?
yes.
There is the general consensus on the current candidate who has become prime minister, Imran Khan, is that he is a guy who has been put up by the Pakistan army. So
Mhm.
basically, Imran Khan, the very fact that he is in office, that means the Pakistan army is running the country, is civilian government also. He is just a figurehead. He's just a puppet who is just sitting there, and the Pakistan army has now taken over control of the civilian government. That is the understanding, which has been sort of backed by the fact that the Pakistan army has been funding his campaign since the beginning. He was introduced into politics by the Pakistani military establishment officials. That that has been the official whatever analysis from third parties. Yeah.
So this is from the Economic Times, which is it's part of the Hindu Times network, right? Or am I
Yeah,
correct? Yes.
no, the Hindu is a far left newspaper. Economic Times is part of the Times network, which is
Oh,
Times
Times
of
of
India,
India.
Economic Times. Yeah.
So this is from July, and it says the U.S. Pakistan relationship. And I think this article kind of had used a little outdated stuff because they mentioned H.R. McMaster, who's no longer the National Security Advisor, but we'll read through like some of it and see if there's any like relevant points. So the U.S.-Pakistan relationship is in serious trouble, and the mistrust between the two countries runs deep. An expert on the bilateral ties at a top American think tank has said a day, a day after Pakistan's foreign minister concluded his three-day visit to Washington, Moeed Yusuf, a senior expert on Pakistan at the United States Institute of Peace, a top
Mhm,
American think tank funded by Congress. If that's true, I mean,
mhm,
why are we throwing our money at think tanks? Said that the default position in Islamabad and Washington was very skeptical of others' intentions. The sense that I
mhm,
have is that this relationship is in serious trouble, Yusuf told yesterday. His remarks came a day after Pakistan's Foreign Minister Khawaja Asif concluded his three-day
mhm.
official trip to Washington, during which he met with Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, and so this had to be. I don't think that this is really the latest because both McMaster and Tillerson are out of office now. This might be from actually. It might be in, it might be that it came out last year, but it must have been updated for 2018. So, of course, we do now have Mike Pompeo and John Bolton, and John Bolton is a real interventionist. He loves just the 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 aroma of the jet fuel as a drone strikes degenerates. It's like kind of like the way other people smell a new Chanel perfume. So,
Uh-huh.
do you think that the change in American, I guess H.R. McMaster was also kind of a douche too, but do you think that Mr. Bolton might become, kind of jar America back into this pro-Pakistan mindset, or do you think the contrary would occur?
See, me personally, I like John Bolton because he is getting results in the sense that he has been instrumental in changing somewhat the policy towards Pakistan and North Korea, which are real trouble areas in the world. So, interventionist or not, that much I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, whatever policy changes he has brought in has worked because Pakistan is on the has now come to be on the margins of the world. It means its influence is dropping, and even on public forums, the only two countries that you'll find supporting Pakistan are uh, Turkey and China. Not Russia. Neither does Russia, nor does Nor does any of the nor do any of the Arab countries support Pakistan for that matter. So John Bolton, I get what he's trying to do. Mike Pompeo, when he visited Pakistan this time, he gave Imran Khan an opportunity to let's just say improve his ways, right? In terms of he's letting Pakistan improve its ways. So that's how it's been perceived, at least, even in India, because he visited Pakistan, he had a brief chat with Imran Khan, and then he came to India for his 2+2 dialogue with what's your defense secretary's name, General John Mattis.
Mattis. Yeah.
Yeah. General Mattis, him and Mike Pompeo came for a 2+2 dialogue with India's defense minister and foreign minister. I mean, so which laid out great plans for the quadrilateral that we are doing with Japan and Australia and US and India. Basically, it was aimed against China. Pakistan doesn't even feature in these things. Even in this brief meeting with Imran Khan, Mike Pompeo told Pakistan that basically stop supporting terror, and please bring domestic actors who are currently residing in Pakistan under control. And when Mike Pompeo was at the head of the CIA, he had made a comment saying that either Pakistan should take care of the terrorists or we'll do it for them. He had made that statement when he was the head of the CIA, and now he's the foreign secretary and secretary of state. I'm saying, I guess, and he's sort of pushing Pakistan. After this meeting, Pakistan came out and said that they said that we never had any such discussion regarding terror. When Pakistan was asked that did you discuss terror and how to curb terror, Pakistan said no, we never said anything like this. The U.S. State Department came out and gave a press. No, we discussed terror, and then Pakistan said no, U.S. is lying. Then the U.S. State Department issued another statement saying no, we stand by our statement. So this has now again devolved into a sort of a he said she said with with the U.S. So much for Imran Khan and his resetting of relationships with the US. Because when he took office this year, after the elections this year, Imran Khan, when he gave his that openings whatever address to the nation of Pakistan, he did not mention terror at all. He mentioned terror only in the context of India was sending terror groups into Pakistan and we need to discuss Kashmir. But besides that, there was no mention of terror in within Pakistan, which was another indicator that he was a sort of a candidate propped up by the Pakistan army establishment. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna say, I guess people are hounding Ryu in the chat too much because he said he had to leave, and I know that Sundays are for him kind of going antiquing with his husband Chad over by the Hamptons or something. So please stop harassing him over that. Let me see here. Now, this was an article that you shared from the Diplomat, which is kind of a more focused publication, and it comes from the U.S. ambassador to India, who kind of made this statement that like every time that a new U.S. president comes to power, they appoint like a Pakistan ambassador, and the guy basically has this miserable time where he tries to kind of whine at the Pakistanis to stop supporting terrorism, and then eventually they just give up and say, hey, I mean, here's some money, bro. Spend it on some guns and heroin. Do you see this developing as it is right now with Trump administration? The same way.
See, Trump. See, say what you will about Trump, he doesn't take any nonsense, right? So you can't bullshit a bullshit artist basically. So Trump is the best of, he's the best of the best. So you can't really see what Pakistan has been doing with seasoned politicians so far. It got away because they were seasoned politicians. They had other concerns. They had a different approach to foreign international relations. Trump is has did not go to that school at all. Forget learning. He never thought of all that beforehand.
Hmm.
So Trump doesn't take any nonsense from Pakistan, or for that matter, any of the Middle Eastern country. Now that is a big problem for Pakistan. Now, Trump's attitude towards Pakistan when he came in was he praised Nawaz Sharif, who was the prime minister at that time. He gave the Pakistani establishment a chance to sort of reset ties.
Hmm.
The Pakistanis initially apparently they jumped, means what was as far as optics were concerned, they jumped at the a chance. They made a ton of visits to the US things, but basically they were trying to do the same, that snake oil salesman kind of thing. They were trying to do that only. So Trump immediately said no, no, nothing nothing doing. We are like, he just bulldozed Pakistan and he said, if you don't improve, we will cut aid. And now it has come to the point that they are cutting aid. And at that time, as I said, Mike Pompeo made some tough statements against Pakistan, and diplomatically, and what ended up happening was Modi and Trump, the Prime Minister of India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and Trump ended up becoming close, sort of friends, or whatever approximation of friends.
Yeah. Why do you think that they
Which
have such a good they have like a good what's it called, exchange, Donald Trump and Narendra Modi?
Because they're both right wing.
But I mean, Modi's background is what? Is he also from the business world, or is he more of
Oh yeah, see, he's from the Gujarati community. No, the Gujaratis are very good businessmen.
they're
They
kind of
are very
merchant people?
business minded.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are very good at at business and industry and all that. So, and they are very good deal makers also. So Modi and Trump understand each other very well in that regard. So yeah, so this Modi and Trump relationship has got Pakistan concerned, it has got China concerned, and it has got Russia concerned. So so India is having to balance the Middle East, Pakistan, China, and Russia as far as its relationship to the US is concerned, because historically India has never been close to the US, and people thought that it would continue in that manner. But after Modi came in, and after Trump especially came in, India and the US have gotten much closer, and and if you ask certain people, too close for comfort. If you ask the Russians, if you ask the Chinese, so, and China regularly issues statements against India's closeness to the US. And in fact, when he visited Trump last in the US, the Chinese foreign ministry came out and made a statement saying that please don't speak against China. You can discuss what you want, but don't talk about China. So yeah, that.
So yeah, there's of course, like, I guess geopolitics is invading like that entire subcontinent over there. Of course, there are other countries in the region that are affected by not just the Pakistani influenced insurgent slash terror groups, but of course, Bangladesh has a very serious fanaticism problem. You have
Mhm,
this whole thing with Burma, or Myanmar as they're called nowadays,
mhm,
that they have this,
mhm.
what do you call it? What the fuck are they called? The Rohingyas.
Yes, the
That I
Rohingyas.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, I just read like an article about it, and it's like, look, people are saying it's the worst genocide in the world. It's not like even. I mean, come on. It's. I mean, I'm not gonna laugh at people getting. I mean, people probably are getting like shot or burned or whatever. But to what I noticed, it just seems like there's like a two-way just this nonsense where these Rohingyas are trying to separate from Myanmar and create their own Muslim country, and Myanmar, of course, is against that. And overnight, I guess, I think it was 2 years ago, they started calling Aung San Suu Kyi, who was once like the symbol of democracy worldwide, they started calling her an Islamophobic bigot. And it's like,
Hmm.
how fickle the world is now that, there are various world leaders who are not from Europe who are saying, this Islam thing is not exactly all it's not like the benign agent of change that people say that it is. There's just this weekend, the Dalai Lama was condemned worldwide for saying, "Hey, come on, Europe is for Europeans, and these refugees shouldn't really be like flooding the banks of any of all these countries, and they should try to go back and rebuild their own countries." And there's just basically calling him like a bigot. It's like, fuck you. I mean, the guy's been like walking around the world in that outfit his entire life, trying to get people to believe in. In fact, I don't even know what he talks about. So, but he's never been like an advocate for war. He's never hated anybody. He's kind of
Uh-huh.
criticized China, but
Yeah, but the Dalai Lama got into trouble with the Indian authorities as well, because and the no, not so much the Indian authorities, the more with the Indian people, because
mhm,
there was this political campaign from the opposition which says, because of the rise of Hindu nationalism, they said they said the ruling party is indulging in vendetta politics, and there is rising intolerance in India.
mhm.
So okay, that's a political debate, right? It was happening. It was raging on at that time, which eventually the opposition lost that debate. So, but what the Dalai Lama ended up doing was, he suddenly one day he just got up one morning and he just tweeted, "There is rising intolerance in India." So people said, "What are you talking about? What rising intolerance are you talking about? We allowed you to come into this country when you ran away from China. The tolerant Chinese threw you, the tolerant Chinese Communist Party threw you out. We very graciously accepted you into our country, gave you a home, allowed you to practice your religion without any obstacles. You go around the world, you interact with world leaders. We gave you the platform and the opportunity to do that. We gave you a home when you didn't have any. And now you are turning around and telling us that there is rising intolerance in India." So the Dalai Lama is okay. Let's just say he's uh, getting on in years. Let's just say that.
Well, I'd say that, like, I mean, if you compare those two incidents, when he criticizes India, nobody calls him intolerant of the Indian people. When he criticizes the refugee crisis in Europe, saying that these refugees, the solution isn't to have them imported wholesale into Europe. People are saying, you're some sort of like Nazi or something. It's like, get fucked already. Like, either the guy, I mean, they automatically, they just change their perception of these people. And the Dalai Lama in the West, when I was a kid, if you put like a quote from the Dalai Lama, let's say you put a quote saying,
Hmm.
the Chicago Cubs are going to go all the way this year, and you put it next to the Dalai Lama, they'd say, "Oh, wisest saying I've ever heard." Doesn't matter what it was. It was just, and now suddenly, because he criticizes that, they're basically calling him a bigot. So I mean, I don't want to focus on the Dalai Lama too much, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would say that there is like a media hesitance to
Hmm.
give the due consideration to reasonable criticisms of Islam because of
Hmm.
this, this thought policing that we have in the West, not just in the United States, by the way, all around the West, in Britain, Australia, and other countries. Um, so.
I'll give you the Rohingya example. I'll give you the Rohingya example also. People talk about the Rohingya crisis as if like as just as you said that they're getting like as if they're getting slaughtered or whatever by the hundreds of thousands. Nobody talks about the mass graves which were found in the Rohingya in the Rakhine state of Rohingya Hindus. There
Mhm,
were mass graves which were found of Rohingya Hindus who were murdered by Rohingya Muslims, and which Rohingya Muslims? Those who were in touch with extremist groups and the Pakistan ISI. They were radicalized. They formed terror outfits within the Rohingya community. They went to Rohingya Hindus, murdered them, and then dumped them in mass graves, and nobody talks about that. Right, and then you have an Indian movie star who went to Hollywood, Miss Priyanka Chopra, who was in that TV show Quantico. She goes to Rakhine State and says Rohingya Muslims are such vulnerable people. We should look after Rohingya Muslims. She did not talk about the mass. So I'm saying from the point of view of celebrities and all these media personalities and the BBC and all these colorful characters who come to the Rakhine State and say, "Oh, Rohingya Muslims, oh, our heart is breaking, oh, it's such so much sadness, so much oppression going on. Oh, we should boo the Myanmar government." This is all nonsense. The Rohingyas were kicked out in the first place because they were getting radicalized. And if Buddhists are kicking you out, imagine how much you have antagonized the Buddhists, because they are supposed to be the most people, some of the most peaceful people, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think like there's a like I think unfortunately, and I wish it was different because there are like genocides happening worldwide. There's genocides like all the time in the Congo that
Mhm.
people really don't care about because they're like used to bad things happening in Africa that don't even get the time of day compared. And the Rohingya. I'm not saying that people should just burn people out and kick them out of their houses, etc. That's not. I'm not telling people what to do or what. But of course, if that's happening, it's a bad thing. But um, there is this almost obsession with that one conflict, all out of nowhere, as if Myanmar suddenly became the most important country in the world. And
Mhm.
yet, in Pakistan itself, you do have this ethnic cleansing going on sometimes with the Baloch people.
Yeah.
You sent me a video
Mhm.
yesterday or a few days
Mhm.
ago about the Baloch issue pertaining to there are some Baloch people living in India that
Uh,
they're trying to support the efforts of some of their friends and associates over in Pakistan, which is one of the larger Baloch concentrations in the world. Um,
mhm.
and nobody could care. People could care less about that. It's the same attitude that people take towards Kurdistan, which is
Mhm.
under Turkish domination, and other countries. Uh,
Iraq.
right. And what do you think are the chances of Balochistan ever attaining like a greater degree of autonomy or even independence?
See, Balochistan is a domestic issue of Pakistan, right? Now, but the genesis of the Balochistan issue is very interesting because when uh, during the formation of Pakistan, the Balochis were a separate nation. They were an actual separate nation. They were a nation. So when they were asked whether they wanted to join Pakistan or not, they refused. And then when they were then they were when they were being forcibly taken over, they filed in the International Court of Appeals, or whatever the international forum was at the time. I'm not sure of exactly what happened, which international forum they appealed in. And guess who they hired as their lawyer? Muhammad Ali Jinnah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who was the first Prime Minister of Pakistan, he was hired as the lawyer by the Balochis. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, when he was asked what his fees would be, he said, "My weight in gold." And the Balochis paid him his weight in gold. Literally, I'm not. That's not a figurative speech. They actually gave him as much gold as much as he weighed, and they told him to fight their case. But before that case was decided, what ended up happening was Pakistan was quickly formed. Muhammad Ali Jinnah became Pakistan. Then he sent in the Pakistan army to take over Balochistan, and which they did. Now, and by that time, the Balochis had already paid him in advance. So he got the gold and the country and he basically got everything. Now, the Balochistan region is a very resource-rich region, but with a very sparse population. It is basically it's about 43% of populations of Pakistan's land area with 5% of Pakistan's population. But it has oil, natural gas, minerals. It's got a lot of things. And but the Balochistan issue, from there, what happened was, and at the same time, the Sikhs who were living in Pakistan were slaughtered. Sikhs were living in or around Lahore. 1 million Sikhs were slaughtered by the Pakistan army. 1 million Sikhs. They were killed. Men, women, children, old people, everybody. Like even their animals were killed. They just wiped out, the scorched earth. There was nothing left. So that's why today, in today's times, if you go to in those areas, you'll see a lot of Sikh pilgrimage sites, but no Sikhs, just empty. So there were two genocides that happened in Pakistan. One is this Baloch, and one is the Sikhs. Now the Baloch thing is still carrying on, but the only difference is the Balochis are now fighting with Pakistan as a basically they found militias, and these militias are fighting with the Pakistan army. But there are many videos that have come out of extreme brutality which has been carried on the Baloch people. Apparently, about anywhere between 30 to 40 people go missing in Karachi and all these places every day, and it's a human rights travesty. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, you can see on the
Now,
map. You can see on the map
go ahead.
here if people look at the screen, Balochistan, and this could be a little exaggerated, but it makes up a substantial portion of Pakistan, some of eastern Iran, which I believe that there is a kind of an insurgency in Iran as well, trying to separate from Iran, and then also some of Afghanistan apparently would be the region of Balochistan, which let's be frank, Balochistan has never been an independent country, such as we
It
know.
was.
Well, I mean,
No, it was before Pakistan was formed. It was an independent country.
but it was part of India.
No, it was never a part of India.
Balochistan, and then maybe
Means it was an independent country. It was Balochistan was not a part of India. It was a separate country. It had formed into a separate. When the Pakistan formation happened, it branched off into a separate country. It was a separate country for a while.
So-
Before 47.
we have to hash this shit out because this is new information.
I'm sorry.
to me.
Wait, maybe I'm getting my dates wrong. Let me just check.
Let me see here.
It had its
Let's look
flag
this
and
up.
everything. When I'm getting my dates wrong, maybe
So
it was a country at some point.
I don't think so, dude.
I'm getting
Oh,
something wrong
okay.
here.
So it was for a while in the 18th century. It was independent.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
So I guess it's they have like a better claim than some other countries that start with a P to independence. So they're look. I mean, I do think with all due respect to people from Pakistan who had fantastic music that we featured at the beginning,
Mhm.
fantastic heterosexual music for those people that are not named Ryu. I still think it's kind of a country that's been cobbled together from nothing, and it's basically a religious country. It's a theocratic state with a thin veneer of constitutional protections that don't necessarily mean anything because you can be thrown into jail just for blaspheming against the prophet.
Uh-huh.
So I think we can move towards the conclusion, Arjun. And of course, we did go through a number of topics today, kind of a number of countries. Of course, the Chinese relationship to Pakistan and India. There was the Baloch conflict. There's of course, the conflicts in Myanmar, which is on the other end of Southern Asia. We went through the issue of why India remained a non-aligned country during the Cold War. Looking forward, Imran Khan is going to be, for the foreseeable future, the leader of Pakistan. Do you see any hope that he might improve relations with your country?
See, he claims that he wants to, right? He has made more of an overture than previous prime ministers. He has, in fact, said that, but then how much the problem with that is how much can we trust a candidate who's backed by the army? Because the army pays his bills. That's a known fact. The and how much can we trust his words? That remains to be seen. Because even the Indian government has given the Pakistani government a reprieve, sort of, that we will talk peace only once the bullets have stopped. There's a policy that the Modi came up with saying, as long as there is blood and bullets, there will be no talks. If there are talks, there will be no blood and bullets. So that is Modi's policy, and he's maintaining that. And he has sent some feelers into the Pakistan government, as the Pakistan government has done after Imran Khan was elected. But Modi is still firmly maintaining the fact that if the ceasefire violations keep occurring, if terrorists keep leaking into Jammu and Kashmir, and all that nonsense keeps happening, then there will be no talks. And as far as the China Pakistan thing, already there is a dispute going on with Gilgit Baltistan, which is a region of Pakistan occupied Kashmir, where China has started building stuff, right? Infrastructure, dams, roads, highways, military bases, military bunkers, and all that, which India has objected to, and the one belt one road thing, which they wanted, that road that they wanted to go from Gwadar to Beijing, that road has been blocked because of an international dispute. Now that is a sore spot with Pakistan, which Pakistan is trying to resolve with India, but India is not talking to Pakistan as of now because the ceasefire violations keep happening. And as far as the Indian government stand is that as long as bullets are there, there will be no talks. So that is another flashpoint with the Indian government. The other being there is the Indus Water Treaty, which is the oldest water treaty, means in the like in modern history, where even despite wars, that water treaty has not been broken. And but in what India has done is India has started utilizing more of the water allotted to it, so which has put Pakistan into a problem, because even though the allocation of water is 80-20, India was not utilizing its full 20% share. But now India has started utilizing its full 20% share, and it has started building infrastructure to store that 20% also, which has put Pakistan in a problem for their for farmlands and all that. So there are a number of flashpoints with the Kashmir issue exists. That's a fixture. So that's I don't even need to mention that. So with all these flashpoints, Imran Khan has mentioned some of these points, but he is still unwilling to talk about terror. So Indian experts who are following this are not too hopeful. But but time will tell. That's my take on that. And especially with the China-Pakistan economic corridor being absolutely being a sinkhole for money, means it's a money pit where money just keeps going in and never comes out, and it's like a black hole where
I
that
think we have
project
the
is going nowhere.
okay. We
Pardon me?
lost connection for you for a second, but I think we're
Uh-huh.
back. Um, so yeah, that was a great take from our guest, Truth Seeker Jeff from
Uh-huh.
Kolkata. And of course, are you still going to open your YouTube channel, or you doing
Yeah,
anything?
I had some personal family issues, so that thing got delayed a bit. But
Mhm.
I'm on track. I'm like going to open that for sure. You
Do,
guys inspired me, man. I'm not going to let you down.
do you have any anywhere that people can kind of message you if you want for?
You can message me on Twitter at Mythic Arjuna Mythic Arjuna. That's my Twitter handle. You can DM me there, or you can tweet at me there. Uh, yeah, basically
Okay,
that.
yeah, I think it's valuable. Maybe we'll try to get kind of a contrasting voice on India and Pakistan and
Uh-huh.
South Asia one day, but it's valuable to have this. I think that our coverage of India has probably eclipsed all of CNN and, for that matter, the other mainstream media. Instead, they're basically doing their best impression of, being, a wind tunnel on TV here due to the hurricane. They're trying to do basically the Jamiroquai thing where, going back and forth in the video and the furniture moving.
Virtual insanity.
Yeah.
Virtual insanity.
That's basically what they do. And we're doing real shit. We're doing what we, look at what you can still get on YouTube from us. Talking about India, homophobic put downs, talking about the moon being flat, stuff like that. You can't get it on TV. So, Truth Seeker Jeff, thanks again, Arjun, for stopping by. And I don't know if there's going to be any more videos today, either on this channel or on Bold Like a Leopard, but I'll obviously tweet them out or put them on Gab. You can see all of the relevant media. I'll put it up on the screen before we close today. 1 second. You can see where to reach me right here. And, of course, Arjun, do you have any final message to the viewers out there before we leave?
The Pakistan issue, at least as far as the US is concerned, at least the Americans should take Pakistan very seriously in terms of terror, because that is the place where all the terror that threatens the Western world or the Western civilization is emanating from. Most terror actors are emanating from Pakistan, and they are being funded by the Saudis. So you should look very closely, and by you I mean all the American people should look very closely at relations with the Middle East, all the Sunni countries where Wahhabism and Salafism exist, where Deobandis exist, and Pakistan, because Pakistan is sending the soldiers, the people who are attacking who are driving the trucks into embassies, basically those guys. So Pakistan is killing your soldiers on one hand and is taking your money with the other hand. So you should reevaluate very seriously your equation with Pakistan and with Saudi Arabia. But also keep in mind, if you stop money, nobody knows where the nukes will go. So that there has to be a balanced view within America regarding that, but also a careful evaluation and reevaluation, not only by the establishment, but the common American people also, because know your enemy very means in and out, because otherwise 9/11s will keep happening and you will not know why. That's my final message.
All right, I think that was pretty sensible, and I will say goodbye to the audience. We have Lennon McCarthy, Arjun, of course you were in the chat too, Ryu Shiska, always a pleasure to have you, and let me see, Chris Kroll was over there earlier. So please, this is a channel that is as a result of the copyright strike on Bold Like a Leopard. So we're going to do the live streams here. I'll try to put out messages before every live stream that we're going to have it and try to be precise with the time. Of course, I do get delayed sometimes because I'm driving home from work, and sometimes because there's details that have to be worked out in advance in order to make the stream a little more detailed. So you can find me also on all the media that you see here on the screen, and also please like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the old channel Bold Like a Leopard, as you can see on screen. Share the video and comment when it uploads, and I'll see you later. Have a happy Sunday, and to you too, Arjun. I know it's pretty late over there, so get some sleep.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Thanks
All right,
so
no
much.
problem. Take it easy.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.